Have you ever been in the zone, firing on all cylinders, time flying by, buzzing with what feels like limitless energy? That's it. That's what you're good at. Your talent, your passion, your side hustle, your own good. My name is Dave, and I'm a teacher, a life coach, an academic coach, and through this podcast, I want to help you discover and own your good. Welcome back to the Own Your Good podcast. This has just been a blast. I was just reflecting a little bit. Every time I get to talk to somebody, most of the time it's somebody I know pretty well, reasonably well. I've had a couple of interviews, conversations with people that I don't know, other than I've observed them from afar. And regardless of who I'm talking to or what we're talking about, I've had the confirmation, the buzz, the chills, the feeling that the people that I'm talking to are doing their thing. They've figured it out, and whatever the struggles that they've been through, they, whether they recognize it or not, are doing what they're supposed to be doing. They're owning their good. They found their thing, and they're pushing for it, and they're making it happen. And today is someone who I've admired their work sort of from afar. We've never really talked about it, and so I'm super excited to talk about how my guest today has figured out his passion, his hobby, and I can see it in his work all the time, whether it's a creative sort of photoshopped. We'll talk about it. Welcome, Dallas.
Hey, with that intro, I feel like I should put my hat on backwards and get ready for the race.
So, we've talked a little bit about careers and things on a one-on-one basis. We've gone on some backpacking trips and things. And You always have, like every time I've seen you anywhere, you've got your gear with you.
Oh, yeah.
And that gear is photography, videography, and sometimes tripods, sometimes not. But go ahead, explain what that is for you, how you got into that, and what you're doing with it.
Well, the story I tell is not really directly, but when I was a kid, we had a 8mm movie camera that was my grandfather's.
Is that a Super 8? I don't even know.
I think it was just 8.
Okay,
I don't think it had any. I have it now.
Cool.
Because my grandfather passed away, but I would take that over to the school across the street, and I'd be pretending like I was filming my friends on the playground and stuff like that. So that on the video side, that's my earliest recollection. And on photography side, my mom had rose gardens.
Okay.
And she loved her roses, and you don't touch those roses. But I did. Uh-huh. I chopped them off, and I put them in a glass vase, complete with a background that was actually ground covering stuff for the garden. Yeah. And stole my mom's camera and started snapping away. This is,
I was going to say, how old are you at this point in time?
At this point in time, I was probably, 12, 13 years old.
Okay, so old enough to sort of have an idea. I mean, I think at 12 or 13, whoever you are, whatever you've done, at 12 or 13, you've sort of seen other people and you're like, I think I like this. I want to try it too. Mm-hmm. And you sort of figure out the little things and you start experimenting.
Yeah.
So go ahead. So
I was just
gotten in trouble.
It's my mom's point and shoot. And I'd never got in trouble. Okay. I'm sure she found out once she took her camera and had the film developed, and what is all this? I wish I had the pictures now. It'd be hilarious to see. But it's kind of evolved over the years. Getting early, it wasn't even Photoshop back then. It was probably some software company. It's not even,
we can talk about it if it comes up. Yeah.
But like discovering Photoshop through taking a picture of my stepmom. This was probably age 16 at that point. Okay. And then what we've now called the noun of photoshopping. Yeah. Photoshopping Princess Di's hair on to her head. And she took some offense to that, but she liked the hairstyle so much that she got her hair redone into the Princess Di style.
So you had a picture of your stepmom, and whatever the version of the photo editing software was, you take Princess Di's hair, Photoshop it onto her head. She's not happy about it, but then she's like, I like that.
I like the hairstyle.
Cool.
So it was fun, and that was really early days of digital.
Yeah.
The camera doesn't even resemble what a camera would look like. It was like a elongated brick with a lens in the front. It was just really horrible to look at.
That's cool. So do you remember people around you taking pictures? Or like, how did you recognize that as something to do?
I did have friends in high school who did take the photography courses. In high school, I didn't.
Yeah.
And I ended up becoming their subject occasionally.
Yeah.
I also remember I like to read. Uh-huh. And just wandering around the library one day, I came across a book of Josef Karsh. And I took that home with me. And I don't know are you familiar with him?
I don't know who that is. Yeah.
You would know him from like Winston Churchill's picture.
Okay.
A very famous picture of...
So a famous person who was brought, not necessarily they're famous, but a famous person, portrait taker kind of a...
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he had these exceptional, beautiful black and whites of Audrey Hepburn and...
And so that's where you discovered, you knew about it before, had experimented a little bit, but not enough to really want to pursue it. And then you find this book.
I don't even think I'd even started exploring photography at that point.
Yeah.
I think it was just like, this is cool looking. Yeah. I want to look at this.
Yeah.
These pictures are just amazing. So I just was looking as a matter of interest.
Yeah. Cool. And I think that's interesting as we find things that we're interested in. We don't necessarily know where that's going.
Right.
So you've experimented a little bit with photography and you discover this book, and there are probably other instances not as powerful and not as memorable where more things sort of point you in that direction, but you don't know that yet.
Yeah.
And so you're a subject of other people's photography. When was it that you actually got equipment? When was it like, I think, and maybe it could have just been a point and shoot. Like, I need this point and shoot because I'm going on vacation. Do you remember what the first...
So first camera, I think was, I don't know. The first, I can point to a point and shoot that I still have that I know, that I took on my 2-year mission. Mm-hmm. And I took thousands of pictures there. And then afterwards,
but it still wasn't, I'm going to go and invest in a nice camera with a nice lens. That wasn't it yet.
Yeah. In high school, I was actually a band geek. Gotcha. I grew up thinking I was going to become a musician. Yeah. Which is another wonderful creative endeavor. And so taking pictures, coming home from my mission. So my dad likes gadgets and stuff like that. And he is somewhat of a photographer. He enjoyed it as a hobby. Yeah. And he gave me one of his digital cameras to borrow. Okay. I ended up keeping that because I took so many pictures of it, with it, I should say, that I wore it out. Really? It's like, you don't need to give it back. It's broken.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was probably at the beginning of digital.
Yeah. It was in the early 2000s.
Yeah, because even up to just this last year, I had my dad's Pentax film 35 millimeter camera, and I donated it to a class that does photography. Sort of like, here's how it used to be, guys.
Yeah, I still have an old film. Yeah. Well, actually, I have several film cameras. Yeah. I don't ever use them.
Right. If you've got something digital that can produce the same thing faster or easier. Yeah. You wore the thing out. How does that work? How do you wear out a camera? I mean, I've had cameras that have gotten sand in the lens, right? Or something to where it just straight up won't work.
Yeah. I don't know exactly how it died. I was looking at my my photo catalog or Lightroom catalog, and I have 11,000 pictures in that. Wow. And that's not including the family pictures. Yeah. So after a while, those pictures add up, and your camera's not going to last forever.
Yeah. Okay. So. That's cool. When you were in junior high or high school, did you have an idea? You said you were thinking that you might go into music as a band member. Was there something family-wise that, like, people grow up and become something.
Right.
Did you have an idea of what you wanted to do when you grew up?
Yeah, it was a musician. My mom was the executive director of the Arts Council.
Okay.
And so I was wrangled into helping with ushering concerts.
Yeah.
And so I got a lot of
So you really did have exposure to that. Yeah.
And with all the other arts, with art galleries and stuff like that.
Yeah. I guess I'm just trying to say, like, I didn't know what I wanted to do in junior high or high school. I knew what I liked to do, and I thought it'd be cool to have a pizza restaurant or whatever. But at the time, I really had no clue. Kind of in that boat where you're sort of like, I think this would be cool, but I don't know.
Yeah.
So that's a lot of pictures, 11,000 in that particular Lightroom catalog, right? What would you say is the thing that you take the pictures of the most?
I would say...
And then why? Let's follow it so you can think about it as you're going there.
I think mostly it would be landscapes.
Okay.
Because if you're taking a picture of somebody, you only take X amount to satisfy the need for what they're looking for.
Whatever the event is or whatever, yeah.
But like you had mentioned earlier, you know, where we went camping, I have my camera, I'm hauling that through the mountains, a heavy camera. And so I can take as many pictures as I want. Anytime I leave the house, if it's going to be anywhere aside from just going to the grocery store with the family, I've always got my camera.
Yeah.
My family's come to understand that. And I always regret it if I don't.
Yeah.
Case in point, my best friend and I, we go camping we used to go camping every year.
Yeah.
And we were planning on going to Kings Peak. Mm-hmm. I'm like, I'm not hauling my gear up to the Kings Peak's the highest peak in Utah. I'm not hauling my camera up there.
Yeah.
And on our way to Kings Peak, we're driving on the highway, and it's like, you know what? If we turn here, we could go to Yellowstone. Okay.
You're that close.
Yeah. Well, we weren't close, but that was
but you're on the way.
That was the turn that we'd take to take us to Yellowstone. And I was like, okay, let's do it.
Yeah.
And we had a great time in Yellowstone. I didn't have my camera. And it's like, if I only had my camera. It's beautiful here.
Yeah. So the hobby has become enough where for you and for anybody that knows or doesn't know about cameras, there are a variety of steps in equipment. The nicer the lens, typically because the lens goes from being some sort of plastic composite, right? It becomes glass, it becomes heavier. Mm-hmm. And you have a variety of digital camera levels where there's, and I don't even know all this stuff. I'm totally amateur at this, but there's mirrorless, which is newer, which is smaller. And then you have a full frame, which is, I think, what you're talking about.
Well,
or a bigger frame.
If we go from small to large, you of course, let's not discount your cell phone.
Sure.
Because cell phones are incredibly powerful these days.
Yeah.
Then you could step up to, say, a point and shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how many people own point and shoots anymore when
they're reasonably inexpensive.
Yeah.
It's another thing to buy.
And if you're looking at making just a small step up from your cell phone, I'd recommend a point and shoot, because the problem with your cell phone is when you zoom, aside from if you have the multi-lens cameras, if you zoom, you're just enlarging that particular part of the picture.
Right. And it's digital. It's not optical.
Yeah. And it's just destroying your picture.
Yeah.
And then from point and shoot, you could step up to the smaller mirrorless ones.
Okay.
And those, I'm not exactly sure what the sensor size is. Yeah, but then like your Canon over here is an APS-C sensor. And that's a smaller of an SLR camera.
Right.
And then you have a full frame sensor in an SLR form. And then you have a medium format camera, which none of us should ever have because they're like $12,000. You know?
Unless you're a serious producer, some sort of firm that's doing video work and heavy picture work.
Well, I'm not sure if they do video on those things.
Really?
Yeah.
It's just a still. Wow.
It's an incredible camera.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned the mirrorless. The mirrorless these days is kind of it's just miniaturizing the SLR. You've got the APS-C sensors and you've got the full frame, and that's they're out there going. Canon just announced that they're going to discontinue one of their 5D line in favor of this mirrorless technology.
And so I guess just like anything, cars, anything, you're paying up or down, premium or discount, depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish with the size of the frame of the camera, the size of the sensor, the amount or the number of lenses that it will accommodate. All of those types of bells and whistles change whether you're shooting faster or slower or landscape or action or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
They all have their application overlaps.
Sure. But what you have,
recommended.
I guess the long way around to this is what you have was heavy enough to going to Kings Peak there wasn't a secondary option. That's what you have. That's what you use. And the weight to cost thing was not worth it.
Not at that particular
time. And then it was. You were like, oh, shoot.
Yeah, because I'm not a big fan of my cell phone camera.
Yeah. Because it's great for snapshots, but not much else. Yeah. I've even with my Canon, I don't have the right lens to do landscape. I can only do so much. Mm-hmm. So that's cool though that you've figured out that it's just what I do. And this is a question for myself because for me, it's an expensive camera, right? Mm-hmm. I'm not professional, so I'm not going to invest in the lenses and things that other people would. But I've always wondered with my camera, if I'm going to school, I don't want to leave it in my classroom where it could potentially be picked up by somebody else.
Right.
What is the temperature danger zone? Like if I were to leave it in my car? Worry, don't worry.
You know, I don't know.
You don't know? Because it's always with you because you need it.
I've left my camera in the car plenty of times.
Okay.
I've never really worried about it. I've just worried about people smashing the glass and taking it.
Right.
It does overheat.
Sure. I guess I also see people like in Canada taking pictures in the snow and the frost and the humidity builds up. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, I spent a few $100s on this thing. I don't want to do that. But
yeah, well, it's the passion.
Yeah.
But you could also, there's procedures they say, if you're going from the cold to the warm, stick it in a rice bag or like a Ziploc bag with rice.
Yeah.
And it'll keep the
condensation and stuff out. Yeah. So it just fascinates me, the technology that we have, and we're mixing nature and this technology, and it's easier now to capture what used to be this like romantic, right? The development of national parks and people becoming obsessed with the bigness of nature and the massive trees. I have been in situations where all I had was my cell phone and I thought, I wish I could capture what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah.
And
that's why I regret it every time.
Yeah. Do you have an epic, like that was worth all of the times that I've brought it and nothing happened? Like this picture that totally demonstrates why I bring my camera with me everywhere?
Well, the most recent that comes to mind was just 2 to 3 weeks ago.
Okay.
Took the kids, a group of us guys in the neighborhood got together and took our kids camping for the night. Mm-hmm. And I left my camera home.
Okay.
Because I had to haul the kids' gear.
Sure.
I have young kids. And we go up to this lake, and in the morning we discover that there's moose at this lake.
Yeah, I saw that picture.
Yeah, well, that wasn't from the trip.
Okay.
That was so I'm not gonna try and take one with my cell phone camera because the distance I want to keep from that moose is really not going to make that picture worth it.
Yeah.
And so I just planned on going back up a couple days later. I got a couple that I was pleased with, but then I had to go back again because I'm like, I got to get this epic picture of these moose. This is just an opportunity. And that second time, making two additional trips up, I should say.
Yeah.
And I had to wait for the moose because they hit the snooze alarm that morning and were getting up early. They just they weren't going by the lake.
Nature, come on.
And so 4 hours later, they come out and they start moving around and they go into the water. And I'm like, all right, here we go. This is where it's going to pay off. And then one of the bull moose wants to leave the water and he starts charging out of the water and it's just shooting water everywhere. And I'm snapping away as fast as my camera, my camera will do 15 frames a second. So I'm filling up my SD card with this moose just splashing through the water. And I was told, I was like, you need to contact a magazine and try and sell that picture to them. And you obviously saw that one.
Yeah. So I'm thinking there are things that I would do to accomplish what I wanted to accomplish. How many trips was that?
3.
3 trips.
And I'm planning more because I wasn't exactly happy with the lighting that day.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I could probably get a better light on the moose from the other side of the lake.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go back on Saturday and I'm going to try again.
That is cool.
You bring your camera, we'll go.
Yeah, yeah. That's when you know that it's something that you love. When you're starting to plan what your free time is like, what you have to accomplish, and you make things happen that make you, feel that cool buzz of I can do it, but I can do better. I can get that, but I want to try this. Yeah. And that nature's not predictable, but apparently these are in that particular area.
Yeah. And it goes that way with portrait shots as well.
Yeah.
You could be having a bad day shooting somebody. Let me think of an example. Okay, so I was doing engagement pictures. Mm-hmm. And I liked the couple. They were great. But I just couldn't get them to look, great. And the whole day was like that.
Was it that they were nervous? Or was it that they were just low energy? Or the light of the day because of clouds? Or
I think part of it was the weather.
Okay.
It was in the snow. And they were pretty low energy.
Yeah.
Whereas I was taking pictures of this new baby. I'm not a nude-born photographer.
Yeah.
That's a whole breed in themselves. Right. But I was taking a picture of this baby, and I was getting some good stuff. So we're taking pictures, and it was looking nice. And I was like, the guy's from Nebraska. Uh-huh. And I said, do you happen to have a hat and boots? Uh-huh. Just as a joke.
Yeah.
He's like, yeah, I'll be right back. So he comes back. But anyways, so the boots come in and everything. And I'm working that picture and I'm just not feeling it.
Sure.
And I just keep working it. Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden it snaps. I'm like, all right, this is the shot.
So it's a combination of perspective and angle. And the prop or whatever is there. And it could be lighting. It could be shadow. It could be distance. There's a whole lot of...
Yeah, well, it was controlled lighting and everything, so I had most of everything under control.
Okay.
And the baby was mostly asleep, but it wasn't. I just wasn't seeing what I thought would be like
the best picture,
a really dynamic picture. And I finally got that shot, and it turned out to be my favorite of the whole day.
Yeah, that's cool. So you've mentioned that you love landscape. You're willing to do people.
Well, yeah, I do people.
Wedding portraits and things like that.
I wouldn't be in business without people.
Babies sometimes. What else have you had experience doing that, whether you do like it or you don't like it, but you do it because people request it and it's something that you can do, and so you're willing to do it for them?
Yeah. Well, we've barely touched on the video side of things.
Yeah.
So I have a client, I film their performances.
Okay.
And it's a youth thing. Sure. And I've seen them so many times. It's all the same performances that it's just kind of boring.
Yeah. So you just set up the camera, click record, pause when it's intermission or whatever, start it up again.
Yeah. Well, I still have to follow the action and everything.
Sure.
But it's just kind of a chore. But I feel like this is something that parents need. Right. They want to have this for the children. It would be sad if their kids never got to see themselves as a kid in this play.
Which is crazy because when we were kids, like somebody had to have some sort of camcorder, massive tape, right? To be able to catch anything like that.
Boombox.
Yeah. That's cool. So how do you... and I don't want to get into the nitty-gritty of making money and all of that kind of stuff unless you want to go there. But I guess the question is this for you enough of a buzz that you're going to the same location to get another shot, or you're working long enough at it to get something better? Is that enough of a push, or is this money-wise worth it for you? Or is it sort of a 50-50 thing? Like, are you pushing to make it a full-time business? Or if you could, would you? Or do you?
I debate that. I mean, I make enough during the year that I'm happy with what I've done.
Sure.
I also want to make it better. I picked up a new client, which I think they're going to turn long term.
Yeah.
Because they just contacted me yesterday for a second job. And the first job was just 2 months ago or whatever.
Which is pretty quick depending on who's doing what in their industry, right?
Yeah. And I didn't figure I'd hear from them for at least 6 months.
Yeah. That's cool.
So I'm always trying to make it better. It's if you're looking at like doing weddings and stuff like that, I'll pass on that. Not a solid pass. If I like you,
right. Friend and family, whatever. Yeah.
I don't want to have to deal with bridezilla and mothers and stuff. And it's to try and compete in that market. It's so saturated. It's just, I feel like I have better things to do with my time.
Sure. Do you feel like photography in general is saturated? Or do you think there's enough business, there are enough people that everybody could make some money out of?
Yeah. It is quite saturated, but I do think that we all have different photographic styles.
Gotcha. Yeah.
And people come to me because they like my style. And I would not go to an individual because I think, I don't like that Instagram look. I'll go to this other individual because I can't take my own family pictures at Christmas. Uh-huh. We have an understanding that we've tried that several years. And my wife was like, no, we're going to have somebody else do it. And I get the back of the Christmas card. Yeah. So I'll Photoshop something together. And that's my side. That's my contribution.
That's fun. But so you are making money. Are the avenues strictly like a client pays you to do something, or do you sell photos? I'm not even sure if photo stock is the thing now, or if there's any other versions of that.
Oh, yeah. So, I have the direct pay clients. Mm-hmm. I have commissions off of sales of DVDs that I've produced.
Sure.
I do stock photos. I started that a couple of years ago. Well, I guess I started a long time ago, but I never really took it seriously until a couple of years ago where they were offering this promotion. I'm like, okay, I'm just going to go through my entire catalog, and if it looks like it could sell, I'm going to try it. Yeah. And so I'm not really proud of everything I put up because some of it's like...
But you don't know what people want.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my best sellers, I was like, I took the picture. I'll just throw it up. Yeah. And I get notifications that it's selling all the time.
Really?
So, yeah.
That's crazy. Would you say that if somebody is getting into photography and they're trying to figure out how to make money, is that probably the best entry level? Or is there other... not that it has to be easy to get into it, but what is a good payoff return for somebody who's trying to get into it and trying to make a name for themselves as an artist, as a photographer?
Right. I don't know. Stock, it's not great money at all.
Well, yeah, it's very little.
But the reason I justify it is because I do it on my free time. Mm-hmm. It's something I love to do. Well, I don't love having to
setting
tag
up stock photos or what. Yeah.
I love to go take the pictures, and it's a perpetual income. If it does well, then I'm making money for the next 20 years until it becomes not relevant,
not popular or whatever.
But if they wanted to really get an in, I would just say...
I guess I'm just thinking of the teenager who's 16 or 17 or 18, and they're thinking, I'm about to graduate from high school, and I got this gift, or I'm going to invest some money in because I love it, and I think I can do it. And they have an eye, like they have the ability to do it, but there's definitely a learning curve. Because I guess they could put an Instagram together and show that they could do graduation photos or portraits for friends or whatever.
Yeah. I think the best method that way would be to offer it to your friends.
Gotcha.
Say, hey, your sister's getting married. Can I take her pictures? And if she doesn't feel comfortable with that, can I at least tag along and take my own pictures, and I'll give you everything that I've got. Yeah. Do it for free quite a few times, build up a nice portfolio. Yeah. And if people like your work, they'll start coming to you. Yeah. I've never had to, well, I've had a couple times where I bid on jobs, but the stuff is generally, they've come to me.
Yeah. That's cool. Would you say that because photography is saturated, I think creatively, whether it's writing a book or art in any form, painting or ceramics or whatever, or photography and some other things, that feels like there are so many people doing this that there's no way that I can break in the art world.
Yeah.
Would you say photography fits that bill? Or do you think that there's enough people in the world that you can find some people that like your style?
I think there will always be. I mean, let's just look at Marilyn Manson. I don't
Sure.
like Marilyn Manson.
Right.
But somebody does.
Strange music, strange shows.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's his niche.
Yeah.
And so there's always enough room, whether you're going to make money or not. Who cares?
Yeah.
I mean, if your only reason for doing this is to make money, you might as well go be a doctor. Sure. Then you make the real money.
Yeah, yeah.
You know?
That's true. I guess that's where we've got to figure it out for ourselves, right? Is the balance between this feeds my soul and I love doing it and I would do it for free, and it'd be nice to make some money doing it too. Yeah. Yeah. Do you have any examples of situations where you're like, okay, that's it, I'm done? And you take a break from it for a minute? Maybe that was that one Bridezilla.
Yeah, I was taking some pictures of someone, and they really destroyed my confidence.
Yeah. So they were pretty picky?
No, it was, they weren't photogenic.
Gotcha. That's hard.
Yeah.
There's not a lot that you can do with that. And so maybe that's why some people like to steer in one way or another, landscapes or babies or whatever, because babies are babies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of work. So be prepared for a big uphill climb on that one.
Yeah. So is there any tech that is coming up? I think when we're into something, we watch the waves, right? We watch the horizon for what's coming next. Is there anything technology-wise with photography, whether it's computers or lenses or cameras or periphery, flashes or whatever, is there anything that you see coming where it's going to change what people do? Or you're just excited because it's what it would fit into your kit?
Yeah. I think the big thing right now is just cell phones, not necessarily the cameras. Perhaps the cameras. There's a camera out there that has like 16 lenses on the back of it, and I don't exactly know what it does.
Yeah,
I've just seen it. But in the cell phone, the software that you have, where I can plug in a little adapter thing. I can plug in actually, I guess I could do it wirelessly too.
Yeah.
And I can be out in the field. I can edit my photos and get them right online, wherever you want them, on Instagram, selling them, putting them up as fine art for posters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think that's a big thing. Camera wise, I think this mirrorless thing is really, it is taking off. Canon just released a camera, a 5R or R5 or something like that. It's a mirrorless, it's full frame, and it shoots 8K video.
Wow.
Which I'm drooling over since I do both.
Yeah.
But it has overheating problems. And really, none of my clients, because a lot of that stuff that I do, they just want the 1080. And so I don't need it. So it's
so even 4K is overkill.
Yeah.
Yeah. And how many people are going to their theater room? Who's got a theater, right? Who's going to their theater room to watch their kid's performance of Aladdin or whatever?
In 4K,
yeah, right.
I can really see your acne this year.
One thing technology-wise that I've been a little bit curious about is how there's always been, not always, but in the existence of consumer computers, there's sort of a fight between Windows and Mac and who can process what better. The RAM that's required to edit video or edit images. Do computers need any more if we're talking just photography?
Yes.
Really?
Just to push sales. I don't know.
Well, I guess I'm thinking, so I had to upgrade the RAM in my computer to be able to edit and process video without it bogging down. And if I was to render it at the end of the process, it was going to take like 3 hours. But upgrading the RAM condenses, it increases the processing power to be able to process more stuff faster, right? Data processes. With pictures, I guess I'm just curious with the phones that are folding, that are coming out with Microsoft's, it almost looks like a book.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Razer has that one that folds down, but looks like it's a full Android or iPhone or whatever. If you could take a picture, I mean, you can, but with the digital and optical zoom on a camera on a phone, are we at a point where a phone can process and edit photography like with Lightroom?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have Lightroom on my phone right now.
So you could take a picture with your camera or your phone, transfer it back and forth wirelessly or with a dongle and edit it and be satisfied with it for a customer to put it on whatever it is that they're doing.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that's not necessarily anything new high tech. It does. It is. Yeah. It's now.
Yeah.
Cool. If you were to be able to talk to yourself at 16 or when you were taking pictures of the roses with the backdrop, would you direct yourself? What would you tell yourself if you could pursue photography even sooner or younger, at a younger age? Because where you're at now professionally with your career and the time that you spend outside of your career doing photography and the chance that photography some years could potentially be a career instead of what you do, would that change, I guess, where you're at now?
No, I would just encourage myself to do it. I think the problem is that up until, say, third or fourth grade, we get encouragement to, I love your little doodles and everything. And then fourth grade is like, put your head down, stop doodling, get to... So it's really pounded out of us, sadly enough. And so if I were to encourage myself, say, you know what? Who cares if nobody likes that? It doesn't matter. If you are proud of what you're doing, you keep at it.
Yeah.
One day it may be a Pulitzer.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think if you could see where you are now that you would have pursued it a little bit harder younger to make it a career, photography?
Yeah. I would definitely would.
I guess there's always that idea of looking back and thinking what I could have done. Hindsight's 20/20. I'm happy where I'm at, or I wish I were somewhere else.
Yeah.
And I don't want to bring you down. You could be a professional photographer, Dallas.
I'm so sad now. Why did you have to bring that up? It's a hard business no matter how you cut it.
Yeah.
So yeah, I would push harder, but I wouldn't tell myself to slit my wrists over it.
Sure.
If you have a bad day taking pictures, if it's cloudy and it's just murky and you've driven 100 miles just to get a picture of delicate arch, and that was your only goal, don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Try it again some other time.
So we've talked mostly about traditional photography, things that people want to keep memories of, whether it's weddings or babies or whatever. Have you had any... I mean, I think all people are artists in some way. Sometimes they express it through writing, and sometimes it's through visual art, painting or whatever. I know that you've experimented some with Photoshop and creative Calvin and Hobbes takes.
Oh, yeah.
Reproducing things. Do you have any other projects like that? Well, let's talk Calvin and Hobbes. But what other projects... Do you have other ideas for things like that?
Yeah.
Well, let's describe the Calvin and Hobbes. You got a little boy that's sort of like... Yeah,
a little blonde-haired boy just came up with the idea, this would be really cute to do a Calvin and Hobbes series. And I figured this could be my viral photos.
Sure, yeah.
Not that I'd be able to make any money off it, because if it probably got too big, it'd become...
Right.
A copyright
Cease and desist.
Yeah. I hear he's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But I must have worked on that for, 6 months to a year.
Mm-hmm.
I was going through, I have half the Calvin and Hobbes. I wanted the entire Calvin and Hobbes.
Yeah.
So I borrowed the complete collection from somebody, and I went through every comic. I read it. It was fun. It wasn't work.
Yeah.
But whenever I saw something that was like, I could do that. That would be a cute picture.
Yeah.
I pictured in my mind, okay, this is how I'd pose my boy and whatnot. And so I take a snapshot of it with my cell phone, and then I cataloged it all into a document. And so as I was starting out, it was a little bit easier because my boy was kind of pliable. Mm-hmm. It's like, all right, I'm going to have you. I think the first one was I took him out. It was winter, but it wasn't snowy. Mm-hmm. So I took him out. I borrowed a runner sled from my dad, those old antique runner sleds. I bought a Hobbs. I bought it for like $35, only to discover it was $10 at Target. So I bought a couple extras for stunt doubles.
Yeah.
And so I took a bunch of pictures of them, and they turned out pretty great.
Yeah.
I enjoyed them. And then as time goes by, as I worked on different pictures, he became more conscious of the camera. And the way I'd pay him for this would be give him a Lego minifigure or a Matchbox car.
Yeah.
Those were his payments, and he was happy for it.
Yeah.
He had to be fast about the pictures because his attention span was like, all right, I'm done.
Yep.
We're moving on.
Yep.
And then just eventually it was like, it was so hard to get him to pose. He doesn't know how to smile for the camera.
Yeah.
There's like, all right, I'm just gonna, I've got this handful of them that I've done over the years, not as many as I really wanted.
Yeah.
Like I wanted 100.
Yeah. A serious collection.
A serious collection. Yeah. A book.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what you look like at this age. And so I just kind of gave it up and threw it out there for people to see after the fact, because I had planned on putting it out all together. But
yeah. Do you have any other projects like that? And not necessarily that it has to be copying something, but creative. What if I could do this?
One thing I'm working on in my mind is a YouTube series. Mm-hmm. But that's just kind of came up with the idea. This would be a great idea. It wouldn't be a viral thing. It'd just be good to have this type of video out there for people.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to come up with something with my littlest daughter, because she is she loves to pose.
Yeah.
If I need I need to check out this lighting situation, she'll stand in for me.
I'll do it, Dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will I get a Lego? Yes, I guess you can get a Lego.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to come with something like that, but I grew up as a boy, so I'm not going to be like, oh, yes, let's do some fairy princess stuff.
Sure.
Because that doesn't excite me.
Yeah. It's not the challenge. It's not the reward. It's just not your thing. That's okay.
Like, oh, we made a cute picture, but it's a fairy thing, and I'm not.
Yeah. That's cool. So if you had some advice to give to somebody else, I think often about the 15 and 16-year-olds that I spend the most time with at school, and they're trying to figure out themselves. They like soccer, or they like basketball or dance or whatever it is that they're doing. They're artists, and they're spending a lot of time doodling in class. And they're not exactly sure what it is that they like, but they have access to it all now, which is kind of frustrating, but cool, because they could literally go to YouTube, figure things out, and for a used price, right, buy some sort of a gear camera thing that didn't even exist when we were kids. But somebody's thinking about getting into it. Somebody's thinking about developing an Instagram for followers, and they love it, and it's a passion, but they're not sure what to do. Or their parents might say, you could spend that money on whatever. What would you tell those kids that think they want to but don't know for sure?
Do what you can. Adobe is $10 a month now, but you don't exactly have to pay for Photoshop and Lightroom. Just buy the Photoshop elements.
Sure.
That's $70 or $100 or something like that.
And it's similar, but not necessarily all the features.
You really don't need all the bells and whistles of Photoshop. It's so powerful. I probably never will use half those features.
Sure. Yeah.
So do what you can. Do something every day. That's something I've heard repeatedly, is make sure you're taking a picture every day. Be open to other possibilities. That I like to write. Mm-hmm. I don't know if my stories are any good, but for a long time I was sitting down every day and I'd be like, okay, what am I going to write about? Well, there's a guy on the bus. Okay, we're going to write, this guy's on the bus.
Yeah.
he has a bomb, and then and I don't know what the end of the story is. I'm writing it, and it's probably never will see the light of day in publishing, but at least it's got my mind thinking.
Well, there are a lot of famous writers that was their process.
I wouldn't know.
I think Hemingway was one of those where he would start with an idea and see where the story went just by connection. Anyway, that's cool. So
he writes Grapes of Wrath, and he's like, okay, we got to figure out grapes of time in this.
Or maybe it was.
Oh, no, that's Stein.
Yeah, that's okay. But there's grapes on the table. So grapes, what does that have to do with? And, then there's a stream of consciousness.
Yeah.
But that's great advice, whether it's taking pictures every day, because then you really do start to see it. And I think I can see that where you're saying, I need to bring my camera because I'm going to see the way the angle of that fence hits the sun off the sidewalk or whatever. Mm-hmm. I've already experienced, man, I should have brought my camera. So I'm just going to bring it so I can do that every day.
Yeah.
And that could be writing. That could be sketching in a notebook that's even lined. It's not even an actual sketchbook. You're just doodling or practicing whatever it is that you do. That's good advice.
And if you find an interest, so kind of a regret. I don't know where this path would have led.
Sure.
But in college, I took 3D animation.
Yeah.
And I took it during the summer. And it was maybe I had 2 classes during the semester during the summer. But I love 3D animation.
Yeah.
I had so much fun. I was hanging out in the 3D lab all day.
Yeah.
Because I didn't have a job. I didn't need to do anything. I was animating.
Yeah.
And it was great. And that eventually led to getting a job as a special effects artist for a temp job, just while I finished it. But I was so focused on my degree, getting my
credits,
emphasis, my emphasis, as opposed to saying, you know what, I think I'm going to go this 3D route. I was just like, all right, I'm going down this film route.
Yeah,
I'm going to be filmmaking, and that led. Yeah, I did get a career until 2008 when everything crashed, but I would like to have seen what would happen if I went down that 3D route because it was so much fun.
Yeah.
And it's I look at it as something that you could do by yourself without having, when I was doing the film, I require me to run the camera. I require you to act. I require the girl to come in and kiss you and all this stuff.
Right now at the end of summer, September 2020, with everything I just heard on the news today, that Hollywood put out a movie. It had not happy results. And so everybody at Hollywood was just like, okay, see you next year. We'll wait until 2021. But that's true because you're dependent on so many other people.
Yeah. So if you do come across something that, if you're taking pictures and one day you can't take pictures because it's raining and you're like, oh, I have enough pictures of the rain and I'm going to try something else for today. And you start doodling or writing and you go, you know what? This is a lot of fun. I'm going to put the camera aside for a couple of weeks while I explore this drawing thing.
Yeah.
I'm going to go in, I'm going to watch Bob Ross on YouTube and I'm going to learn how to paint.
Yeah.
And maybe that is your calling in life. Maybe it's to be a painter, but you don't want to be distracted because my path is photography and
I've already invested this money in it. I have to keep going.
You can sell on KSL and buy some canvases. Just don't become so distracted by the path that you're on that you can't explore other paths.
That's powerful.
It's all creative.
Yeah.
It all makes us feel enriched, satisfied inside.
Yeah.
Being a creator is much better than being a consumer. So if you're out there creating, you're doing something regardless of what it is.
Now here's my instigator side. I don't think I've done this yet with anybody, but obviously photography is your thing. Like that is the one, not the one, but it's one, like the one big thing that you're sort of always thinking about.
That's my bag, baby.
That's your thing. Why not animation? Like what's stopping you from going to Udemy and
that's a good question.
Taking a couple courses for $10. Really?
I am. Yeah. It's tough because when I'm parked on the computer trying to learn the 3D, here's something for kids to know. The software I'm learning right now is called Blender and it's free.
I've heard of Blender. That's pretty cool.
And it's really a slick piece of software for being as expensive as it is.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, so it's just tough to sit down and find the time because it's very time consuming.
Right.
As opposed to photography, I'm like, my wife will actually send me out the door. She's like, you've been having a bad day. You probably should go take some pictures.
Isn't it great to have somebody advocate for when we're not feeling good?
Yeah. So yeah, I get shipped out the door occasionally to go take pictures.
Yeah.
But 3D, it does take a little bit longer. So I am working on it.
Yeah.
It's just going to take longer.
And that makes sense. I mean, as we have more and more responsibility, when you're 15 or 18 or whatever, it's like, I can do this until 4:00 in the morning.
Yeah.
But becoming a parent and adult and managing all that other stuff. But that's cool. That's encouraging to see a fellow with a career, with a family, with the hobby that takes 3 or 4 trips to go catch that picture and still trying to figure out that other thing. Will this go anywhere? Could this become something that I enjoy as much as photography?
It doesn't really have to go anywhere.
Yeah.
It makes me feel satisfied.
Yeah.
It's back to that writing thing. I probably don't ever want anybody to see this stuff. It's first draft stuff. I have no intention of going back and going through rough drafts,
polishing it and stuff.
It's just making me feel satisfied.
Yeah. Cool.
And maybe my kids will enjoy it one day when I'm, past and they go, oh, look at this funny story. I remember this.
Yeah.
He read this once.
Yeah. That is fun.
Now, another thing that I'm trying to, I found this in my own life just recently is like, I'm not recording enough of my ideas. Uh-huh. And I feel like those ideas could lead to bigger ideas. We were just in North Dakota. Mm-hmm. And just an example. And we went to see this missile silo. And we're looking down at it and the ranger's telling his story. And I turn to my kids and I say, have you ever heard about the Cowbin missile crisis? And so I made up a story about how a cow was standing on top of the silo when it opened up, fell down, caused the operator to think that he was under attack, and he starts readying for the...
Yeah.
And then this leads up to the Cuban missile crisis.
Right.
All because of a cow. Yeah. It's a stupid story meant to entertain my kids. But right as we got back to the motel, I was like, I got to record this. Yeah. Because, it is pretty dumb. Right. But it's an idea. I need to get this down. Yeah. And hopefully that will lead to having my kids have something. It enriched me for the time being while I was writing it down. And
that's one of those memories that maybe the tour wasn't as fascinating as it was supposed to be. Yeah. And help the kids sort of get through whatever, right?
Well, the kids didn't really care. It was just to keep them entertained while we're going to another boring historic site.
Yeah. Yeah. That's cool. I think that is a fantastic idea that everybody can benefit from and I think a lot of people know this, maybe they don't remember this, but if you are given an idea or if an idea hits you and you recognize that it just like exploded into your mind or the situation that you're in caused it, if you take those things and try to figure it out or polish it, or at the very least record it, more will come. Yeah. And that's the process of trusting that creative process, taking it, building on it so that it comes more freely. It flows more freely. And the more regularly you see that, the more regularly it happens. I think it's the same thing with taking pictures. The more you do it, the more you see it.
Yeah. And it's releasing that third grader kid. Yeah. Before we started getting pounded down for having fun and creative ideas. Back when everything was fun. Yeah. Yeah. Man. So let me turn the tables on you, though. Go. What do you do creatively on a, I'm not going to say daily basis. I hope you say, I'm going to start doing something daily, but.
Well, so I talk about reading with my students all the time. And for me, that's sort of I appreciate the craft. It's not me creating it. But then it gets me thinking, that could be a cool story. But then I have a hard time putting it down on paper. So the thing that I really do is just enjoy playing music. So whether that's on my piano or the guitar or it's those two things, it's nothing else. But I've toyed back and forth talking with a couple of different people. I've got the space. I don't have neighbors that are super close. We got to start a band. Yeah. And that would be a blast. But then I'm thinking I'm working and I've got a family and I'm trying to get this podcast where I'm sharing what other people are doing and what I think is fascinating. So it's tough. It's what do I want to spend my time doing?
Yeah. Well, even with your job, I feel like you discount the fact that you're reading to your boys or your boys,
the students,
your students. You are creating interest. If you read it like you're reading
some
stereo manual,
legal document, whatever. Yeah.
But if you're like thinking about Robin Williams in that one movie where he was the professor.
Yeah.
If we are marked to die, we are new.
Dead Poet Society.
Yeah. Bringing things to life, you're creating interest in others.
Yeah.
And sparking their passions, perhaps.
Yeah. That's true. That reminds me of one thing that I did do creatively. When I was teaching 8th grade, we were reading The Hobbit, and the movies had come out. They were out. So all the kids were always saying, are we going to watch this? Not all 3 of them, no. And they're not, we would have to get parent permission, no. But the coolest thing was in the beginning of The Hobbit where the dwarves show up and they're in Bilbo's house and Gandalf is there and there's a song that they're singing about Smaug and how the dragon destroyed the town.
Is that the one in the movie or just the book?
It's in the book.
Okay.
But then in the movie, that's the really cool sort of low chant.
Yeah.
Far over. And the kids, like these 8th graders, these 13, 14-year-old kids, they're like, most teachers are girls. And they all turn around like, this guy teacher's singing in class? And it's the coolest thing because who sings in class unless you're in choir?
Right.
But that was a creative way of using a talent to engage them. And that was fun. And
it's something they know because it's lyrics to a movie they want to watch in class.
Yeah. Thanks for bringing that up, man. It is interesting to be talking about what somebody else is doing, but then to not include my experiences doing that.
Yeah, because we're all creative.
Yeah.
And I'm interested in what you have.
Yeah.
I mean, music.
Yeah.
I did jazz in high school and college, and a lot of that was the improvisations throughout the songs and wonderful creations.
So do you still do music? What do you play? I don't know that we've ever really talked about this other than singing.
Back when I thought I was going to be a musician, I started out in 6th grade. I played the cello. I wanted to play the saxophone because that's what my brother had played. But the school wasn't offering a band; they were just offering the orchestra. And so I took up the cello. And then when in 7th grade, when it was middle school, I took on the saxophone.
Gotcha.
And then I started picking up other instruments. In the jazz band, we had parts that had flutes.
Sure.
Okay, well, I gotta learn this on the flute now.
Yeah.
I gotta learn the clarinet.
So you literally could have been a music major to become an orchestra band teacher to play all the stuff for everybody.
Yeah, and so it grew. I traded mowing my neighbor's yard for piano lessons.
Yeah.
I loved it. And so nowadays, I got my horns down in the basement. I pull them out every other Christmas to play some Christmas songs, but every night.
We lived in the same neighborhood for how many years? Now we really have to start a band.
All right.
I would love to have a band that has the bass guitar, a singer, some horns, the drums.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
I would need some practice before. Because right now it's just, I'll sit down to the piano and I'll plunk out stuff.
Yeah.
And then every night I play the ukulele for my younger two.
Yeah.
I don't know how many times I've sang Puff the Magic Dragon at this point, but
what about the lava song?
That too, yeah. That's a little high for me.
Yeah. Well, man, this has been a blast of an hour talking with you about your photography and then pushing me out a little bit into some stuff that I enjoy. But just like every episode. Well, just like every episode I've had, everything that we talk about that resonates as real or true, that really matters, because money matters because you got to pay the bills and all of those things. But ultimately what it comes down to being happy is creating something. Mm-hmm. And you can share that and it increases your enjoyment of creating, or you can sort of keep it to yourself and maybe eventually somebody will discover it. But
you never, if you hold everything in, I'm not going to show you my whole catalog because it's not all great.
Yeah.
But if I keep that just for me, then it's not shared and people don't experience it. The Chinese don't steal it. It doesn't enrich anybody.
Yeah.
You may feel that I hate to say we want that the likes or the thumbs up or whatever.
Yep.
If that's what it's there for, you know, more power to you, but just get out there and share it.
Yeah. I think that is probably the scariest thing, right? Like, we want approval. We want people to say that they see what we've done and appreciate it and like it. But what is that number? Like, is it one person that likes it, or do we really need 300 people to like it?
If my wife likes it, it's good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's pictures that she's never even seen. She's like, we'll be looking for something and I'll bring up we're looking for a picture of her kid or something like that.
Yeah.
And we're going through them and I didn't see that. I've never seen this picture. Like, do you like it? Okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah.
Just one.
That is cool. Any big plans in the future? Do you have any major goals with photography? Were you stepping out, doing something else, retiring early and jumping into it?
I just kind of am just going to follow my course as it is. I do have some job prospects for full-time with a company where it'd be a little bit more comfortable, where they offer health insurance and stuff like that, which is important to the wife. But just keep going, sell one of my lenses so I can buy this other one that comes up that I'm drooling over. Yep.
That's cool. Well, that's cool that there are prospects. I guess that's one of the things that's difficult as a creative. There's I want total control over what I do, and I want to love everything that I'm doing about it. Or, and I don't know if it is still selling out, if you're saying, I'm willing to do what you want to do, selling my soul a little bit to help you make money and exploit my creative abilities.
Yeah. That brings up I met with a car dealership back in April or May. They were looking for a photographer and videographer. And I feel like I could have been worth selling out for. What they were looking for was snapshots.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking I could take your dealership to the next level. We could make it look like they're coming out of a magazine, which isn't always great because I shot a car like that for somebody. It had a hard time selling because people thought this used car was an actual picture from the dealer or whatever.
Right off the lot.
And not the real car.
Yeah.
It's like, can we get a picture of the car? That is the picture of the car.
Man, that's cool.
I don't know. I don't know what the point of that story was.
Well, no, it's selling out.
Selling
It's
out.
whether or not it's worth it to do what somebody else is going to pay you to do.
I think if you believe in it, I probably would never make a great salesperson unless I believed in what I was selling.
Yeah. That's the problem, right? But you believe in your process, you believe in your product.
Yeah. But
So
if I'm having to go and sell a t-shirt that says I'm a dork on it.
Right. I guess it's your representation of the product.
Why do you need
You're
that?
taking the picture of it. What about drones?
Drones. I was just flying one before I came.
So I know that there are people who hire for real estate. Mm-hmm. Is there any other aspect where people would require video or image from on high?
Well, first of all, I can't commercially make money yet because you have to have a FAA Part 107 license, which I'm working towards. I'm just kind of waiting for the FAA to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah.
As far as drone photography, you're looking at real estate. You're looking at, it's a 3D mapping of the ground.
Gotcha. Is that like with LiDAR, or is that something completely different? There's some other form of radar where they're taking pictures.
They do have LiDAR on there. I started listening to this podcast after I got my drone, start learning about this stuff. I was like, wow, there's a whole lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Search and rescue.
Okay. Yeah. That would make sense.
In general emergency services, film.
Yeah.
A lot of people. Well, it used to be a big thing to have a drone shot in your movie. But I think it's become so commonplace that they're kind of like, well, we'll stay on the ground.
Yeah. Would you say, I don't even know, is there a percentage of the cost benefit of a crane versus a drone? I mean, because it would seem like in Hollywood, if they're going to be doing production, serious production, they've got the crane, they've got the trolleys, they've got everything set up to move.
Right. Well, the thing about a crane would be you'd just have a limited movement on it.
Yeah.
You'd have to set up your tracks. It might take longer.
Yeah.
Whereas the drone, if we say we're filming something of of an individual in their bedroom. They come out of their bedroom, they come down the hall, they grab their keys, they walk out the door, and you're following them. You're in front of them the entire time. You could do that with a crane. You could do that with a drone. You want to be really careful with the drone. Chop off some fingers. But if you were to keep that going and elevate,
rise up above.
And so you could go up above the house and show the town where the guy lives. So it'd just be a different application.
Yeah. I guess it just feels like there's sort of a limited creative space for it.
Yeah. Well, I have a friend from college who has a full-time job. That's his business, doing Mercedes commercials and whatever else he does.
Wow. So there really is.
Yeah.
That's cool. And I guess the stunt people, the people who are filming themselves skating or skiing or biking down the mountain with a drone.
Yeah. That it's amazing how advanced those things are, where they can just track.
Yeah. That's cool. Well, I can't think of anything else the whole idea of pursuing something that brings you joy is the whole purpose of this. And I feel like we've explored that to the point where I don't know where else to go. You've demonstrated all of the things that you enjoy about it, and how your wife puts up with it and your kids have humored you some. Do you have a website where people can go and visit and look at your artwork, the things that you are doing?
Yeah. Just dallasgolden.com is my business website. Social media, I have little patience for it.
Yeah.
I essentially quit Facebook back right before the last election. I was like, I've had enough of this.
It's a political mess.
So I still have it, and I'll check it occasionally. And there is some stuff up there, I think.
Okay, so
but
we
Instagram,
can link to your Instagram. We can link to your website, and so people can see your work. It really is cool to see. I think a lot of people see pictures and they're like, yeah, that's a good picture. But when you see an artist who has really figured it out, and like with your moose example, really tried over and over and over again to get the perfect shot, I think people recognize that. They don't necessarily know the work that goes into it, but they can see the picture and go, wow, they were in the right place at the right time.
Yeah. And that's another thing you bring up, or that's a good point you brought up, is that if you're expecting to grab your camera and get the most beautiful sunset ever, you're not going to get it from your couch.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and do it.
Yeah. That's awesome. So we'll have a link to dallasgolden.com. We'll have a link to your Instagram where people can follow you and look at the art that you've done. And if anybody's looking for work or a photographer for your work, they can reach out to you there.
Yeah.
Well, thanks, Dallas.
Yep.
This has been awesome. I love chatting about the things that drive us, try to do things better, the things that we like to spend money on that sometimes people think we're wasting money on. But it brings us happiness, and it brings us, like you said, that fulfillment that you're doing something that is worth something. And
well, I feel like this podcast, you're really expanding your vision on life with discussing this stuff.
Yeah.
As I talk, listening to Matt Page, we're on the same Disneyland schedule for some reason because we keep running. But listening to him is like, yeah, I kind of feel the same way about that.
Yeah.
And so you're doing a really great thing here with this this podcast.
Thanks.
It's like, I feel like Matt. I get where he's at.
Yeah.
Or I don't agree with that.
Yeah, that's cool. Well, I appreciate that. For those of you that have just discovered us, lots of other conversations about what it is that you can do to pursue what you enjoy, sometimes the paths that you can take, the directions, the choices that you make, ultimately to own your goods. So check out those other episodes. There are other thoughts and things that we put out on Instagram, social media to sort of help you figure that out, perpetuate the decisions and the opportunities to decide what it is that you are good at and possibly what you could do to pursue that and maybe make your life a little bit happier, a little bit more fulfilling, and possibly even help somebody else through the thing that you're doing. So do your best, hang in there, and enjoy the process. Thank you for joining me today on Own Your Good. I'd like to give a special thanks to Arches Audio. They are the ones that provided this awesome music. If you need anything for a project, I would go and check them out. They have a great selection of music and other services to help you with your creative projects. I hope that you found this valuable. If you enjoyed this episode and it did something for you, or you think somebody might benefit from it, please share this. It would mean a lot to me to help spread this positivity and this idea that people can change, improve, and ultimately own their good.